Okay, I need to weigh in on this. It's Bo Spira, the weirdest guy on YouTube and possibly the internet, and I am just going to come out and say it, even though I know I'm going to cop blowback for it, because the truth hurts. If you're complaining about Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser, grow up. Here's the reality of what this is. This isn't a hotel. Yes, it's marketed as a hotel, but let's be clear. And look, there are plenty of reasons to dogpile on Disney. And there's even arguments that they've failed here. They should have made this based on the original trilogy rather than the sequel trilogy. It's the same mistake as Galaxy's Edge. Fair point. I agree. But there are people that are complaining about the actual cost. Now, let's be clear. Galactic Starcruiser is marketed as a hotel, but when we look at it, it's really a glorified theme park. It's a premium luxury experience. It's 2 days inside the Star Wars universe. You embody a character, you go on missions, you're locked in this area where essentially it's like you're traveling on a Star Cruiser. It's a mock Star Wars cruise. When you've got something like this, you're going to have actors, they've got fine dining, etc. The whole thing. It's a premium experience. Now, yes, it is the least value package, shall we say, is $4,800 US for 2 persons for 2 nights. That's a lot. I agree. But it's not really that big a deal because there are plenty of other options, plenty of other things out there that are very similar in their experiences. Now, I'm going to talk about my local zoo, which in Australia is the National Zoo and Aquarium in Canberra. Now, the National Zoo and Aquarium has a standard admission of $47 for adults, $27 for kids, $23 for kids, sorry. And if you want to, you can add on these premium experiences of $55 for a 15-minute up-close encounter with an animal. And I haven't been, so I don't know how many of these you can tack on, but presumably you can tack a few on and they'll be scheduled throughout the day, etc. But the big thing with the National Zoo and Aquarium is Jamala Wildlife Lodge. Now, this is a hotel that is attached to the National Zoo and Aquarium. And you can stay there, and it starts from, I think it's $1,350 and goes up to $2,600 a night. And the whole deal with this is that you are sleeping in a room that adjoins an enclosure. So if it's the giraffes, for example, there's an open window where the giraffes can actually stick their head in and you can interact with the giraffes. Obviously, it's a bit more dangerous with something like a lion or a cheetah or a tiger. And so in those cases where there are lodges that you can actually stay in, adjacent to a lion's enclosure, there is actually a glass wall and there's actually a bit where the animals can go in, rest, and sit next to you. So with the safety of glass between you, you can actually spend the night sleeping next to a tiger or a lion, which is really cool. But how many people can afford $2,600 a night? Not the average person. This is an experience for the rich. And that's fine. Or people who save up and they want that big experience. And again, that's okay. You know, you or I aren't going to die if we don't get to sleep next to a lion for a night with a sheet of glass between us. We're not going to die if we don't get to have a giraffe sticking its head in the window when we wake up in the morning and maybe being able to feed it. You know, we're not going to suffer serious harm. Yes, we might not be able to afford that, but there's the up close and personal encounter situations with the zoo, or their standard admission. You know, we're not going to miss out if we miss out. It's not that big a deal. Our life isn't over. And it's the same thing with Galactic Starcruisers. You know, you've got the standard Disney admission park. You've got the standard admission to Galaxy's Edge. And then you've got this thing. Now, this thing, people will go, yeah, but there's hosts in the parks, etc. Yes, say you have 50 hosts throughout the whole of the park, or 100 hosts. That's with entries of tens of thousands of people, or thousands of people on busy days. This hotel is going to be scaled for hundreds of people. You know, maybe 1,000 or two. I haven't looked at the figures, but it's not big. And with the way this is geared up, because this is essentially live action role playing for 48 hours, you've got actors that have to be there on standby. Now, say those actors are getting paid $10 an hour. because we all know Disney likes to undercut people and screw over their employees. So it's not going to be that high. But say it's a $10 an hour wage for their employees. Say you've got 50 actors in there, and they're there for 48 hours where they have to be on the clock. Because let's face it, at the middle of the night, someone could get up out of bed, go to the bar area, and if there is a character there, they need to be in character. So 10 times 50 times 48 is 24,000. You've then got the fine dining experiences on top of that. Where people are essentially getting food that would cost hundreds of dollars if you were going to a fine dining restaurant for a dinner for two. And again, that's okay. And then you've got the accommodation that's themed to look like it's a Star Wars room. And, they're charging what? $1,200 per person per night. Now, in Australian, that $2,400 I think works out to $3,300 Australian per room per night. How much of a difference really is that between spending $2,600 a night to sleep in a room where you're potentially sleeping next to a tiger or a cheetah or a lion if they feel like sleeping in that part of the enclosure? How much of a difference is there really? There's none. So why are people losing their minds over this? The access media is always going on about how fans are toxic, entitled man-babies. Yet, all this response does is give that gaslighting ammo. Because guess what? We are not going to die, we are not going to suffer serious health concerns, or go to hospital, or anything else, if we don't get to do Galactic Starcruiser. And guess what? If you have a nervous breakdown or a mental breakdown because you don't get to go, you have bigger problems than just Galactic Starcruiser. You've got serious mental health issues, if that's the case, that you need addressing. So, let's be clear here. The world doesn't owe us anything. A humanitarian world should absolutely make sure we've got access to the necessities. We should absolutely have a world where everyone has enough good food to eat, has shelter where they're able to sleep in a warm bed of a night. They should be able to eat food that isn't going to poison them or be filled with maggots. Absolutely. But there is a difference between necessities and luxury items and luxury experiences. People are acting with this like if they don't go to Galactic Starcruiser, it's like they're going to die of starvation because it's out of reach of the average person. So what? So what if it's out of reach of the average person? A Bentley's out of reach of the average person. Staying in the Ritz-Carlton in New York is out of reach of the average person. Sleeping next to tigers and lions in the National Zoo and Aquarium is out of reach of the average person. But no one's going to die if they have to drive a Prius or a Camry instead of a Bentley. Has to just take the standard zoo experience instead of sleeping next to a tiger. Or has to stay in a Travelodge or a Best Western instead of the Ritz-Carlton. This is the problem with people these days. The entire participation trophy culture of you deserve everything, you deserve to be entitled to everything, has made everyone in the Western world lose perspective. You are not entitled to a luxury experience. Yes, you might want one, but guess what? It's perfectly okay to go, I would love to do that if I ever had the money, except that you can't, and be grateful for what you have. It's how parents used to raise their kids before they started worrying about being liked more than actually parenting their children. And now we have a generation of entitled adults who were raised by parents who were too busy being liked and wanted to be liked instead of being responsible parents, who are now teaching their kids the exact same lessons. I mean, talk about first world problems. There are plenty of things that people can attack Disney for. Their hypocrisy over their identity politics. There are issues with the parks, with them creeping up the value of things for an ordinary family. By all means, that's an experience for an ordinary family. It's meant to be affordable for an ordinary family, and if there's problems there, Sure, criticize that. You can criticize the hypocrisy of how Disney claims to be a family company and then how they treat their authors like Alan Dean Forster or how they're accused of treating their employees. By all means. But no, Disney have done absolutely nothing wrong in this case because businesses are allowed to offer different tiers of experiences. They're allowed to offer, the average experience for the average person and then the luxury experience for people who can afford it. That shouldn't be an issue. It's never been an issue in the past. And when people make it an issue now, they act like the very entitled, toxic man children that the toxic access media fan blames and gaslights us as. If you can't see the problem with that, then you really need to take a look at your life, recognize what you have in terms of having food on the table and a roof over your head and a warm bed to sleep in that millions of people around the world would dream of having. Get a reality check, grow up, and gain some gratitude. Until next time, folks, be kind to each other because you deserve it.